How you doing, guys? Welcome back. It's LSP. It's currently the 27th of November 2021. So I'm going to be doing some analysis today for the Hollywood squad over at the DAO for Swissborg. I'll be talking about CHSB today, MATIC and CURVE. These are the three that I'm going to be focused on in this video. As always, guys, this isn't financial advice. These are just my thoughts and opinions. So just please make sure you do your own due diligence before, investing your money into a particular project. So with that said, let's go into CHSB. Obviously, we've had some movement recently. I have discussed this in the previous analysis video. But the latest move, what's important to understand, when we get a nice impulse on a stock or an asset or a forex pair or something like this, it always shows up in the same way regardless. Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily have to be, a different market. All the markets are the same when it comes to impulse moves. Yeah, when we finally get some movement in something that hasn't been moving for quite some time, one of two things generally tends to happen. Price will either pop first. So as we can see here with Swissborg, we've had a nice run up. And now we're getting a pullback. So this is the first of the two things that generally tend to happen. You get a pullback, stabilizes, and then off it goes. And that second run is generally the one that really starts to go. Excuse me. Or we just really rip, capitulates a little bit, and then we get more of an aggressive pullback, or it just holds up there and then it continues on a second run. So right now we're effectively getting the first of the two scenarios, and you can see the first initial run, and this is what I'm seeing at the moment anyway, at least. So if we do this, you can kind of see we had this consolidation for quite some time, and in fact it's actually extended all the way back here. So we had this consolidation for quite some time. We've got a little bit of movement. Price comes down back to the consolidation just to pick up a little bit more liquidity, and then off it goes for a second pop, right? Then we start to pull in, and we're just resting back inside the consolidation. So if we extend this, what we can see is a full consolidation and a move out of the consolidation and then a rest back at the top of that consolidation, which, for those of you who understand classical charting, this is effectively what generally tends to happen. You get this move, it comes back, and as long as we hover above or around the top portion of this consolidation, it bodes well, because it means that this move, it's a nice impulse move, it's normal price behavior, and we should start to see that secondary pop, which hopefully will be the one that really goes. Now, obviously, we are approaching Christmas. We've got that last month now run into Christmas. So, the next couple of weeks, volume does start to slow down on a lot of these markets. The crypto market still maintains its volatility, and if anything, it actually increases the volatility, on the crypto market. But be mindful that volumes will start to slow down, and we should start to see, pretty much market-wide slowdown effectively. So if that happens, which, like I said, historically, it does tend to happen during this time of the year, then I would expect things to just, not really move that much. But also, just as a side note, remember, the less volume that there is in a market, the more volatile it can become. Okay, so just be mindful of that. So far with Swissborg, looks good. I'm happy with the way that it's forming. Obviously, I've been holding this for a very, very long time. So for me, I'm thinking years down the line that, this normal market behavior for me doesn't really affect the way that I look at the investment per se. It just means that, it's something that we monitor, something that we keep an eye on, and it's more for an accumulation as opposed to actually, looking for a place to get out of CHSB. I won't be getting out of CHSB anytime soon. So that's CHSB. Let's go over to MATIC. So here's the weekly chart of MATIC, okay? And I'll quickly say, generally, if you look at pretty much if anybody wants to do this study, just go to the top 100, or even the top 200 on CoinMarketCap, and just have a look at every chart, on the daily or the weekly. And generally what you tend to find is this, period of nothing, price explodes to the upside, and then it just comes all the way back down, or about 3/4 of the way down. You see that quite frequently, and it makes it very hard to work with the higher time frames. MATIC isn't like that. Yeah, we've seen this first initial pop. It's come all the way back down, takes out the low, okay, and then since then we've just been grinding high, and we see this nice move up, pullback, and it's looking like, that third, run to the upside and then a pullback maybe. So it's actually looking pretty strong. In terms of areas of liquidity, I mean, we're currently sitting right in the middle of a liquidity pool, but it's so big it's pointless even making a note of it on the weekly chart. So let's drop down to the daily and have a look. You know, sometimes when you're looking at charts, they just look so clean. I really like the way that this chart is forming. It's such a nice, you know, normal price behavior. There's no erraticness. There's no craziness. There's a couple of key sections on this chart. You have this one here where you see price tried to go, reverse, came all the way down, takes out all of the liquidity in this area with that nice drop, picks up liquidity here, comes down a second time, takes out that low, clears out all of the liquidity, and then starts to grind to the upside. So what's interesting is this area right here, okay, is responsible, right, for this move, yeah? And then this area right here, as price comes back into it, just there, is responsible for this move and then this secondary move. So the whole move effectively hinges on this liquidity pool down here, all right? So what that means is if price does, for argument's sake, come all the way back down to this level, yeah, I would expect a very strong response. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but this is something that, you know, from experience, it's just something that I'm going to be mindful of and I'm going to make a note of. Now, in terms of upside, we can see we've had, where are we? So, yeah, so we've had a pop, consolidation, a nice pop. So we've got that secondary impulse just there. That's effectively just been negated. So that last move from this point to this point, has been voided effectively. So we're working on a new impulse right now. If this area holds, okay, that's effectively what we want to see. So I'm going to make a note of this in a different color so we know that that's a pretty important point. This area right here needs to hold, okay? You can see it tried to pop there. It's reversed and it's come back into this small area of consolidation. So we really need to see that you know, this high taken out, you know, for price to continue to go to the upside. You know, and we'll just kind of do this as well. So this is a key level, right? The key level at the moment is going to be 197, so we'll call it $2. MATIC needs to get back above $2 if it's going to do anything, basically. So right now, there is a possibility that it just kind of just stay in this area and maybe slowly start to bleed in, especially with this slowdown coming in the market now as well, going into Christmas. We'll probably get nothing on MATIC, but having said that, there is a lot for it to get through on the downside, so it's going to have to grind through all of this mess. And if it does, which we will see signs of, it will come straight for, we'll start there. It will come straight for this area down here, all right? So this area down here, if price starts to grind through all of this mess, comes down, comes down, comes down, it's going to go straight for this area down here because the imbalance here is going to get rebalanced very, very quickly. Let's just go down to the 4 hour and just have a look how that all forms. And you can see, I mean, look, this is all fractal, guys, fractal nature. I know some of you, you know, do ask me, how do I work this out and this and that and the other. It's just experience, and I suggest that, you know, for anybody that's interested in learning, you know, the basics of some of the things that I talk about, just have a look at supply and demand theory, you know, and look into Wyckoff as well. There's a lot of good stuff there, but, you know, I've had to painstakingly refine a lot of this stuff through experience, you know, watching charts, going through the motions, and it's something that I've, you know, spent years and years and years doing. I used to print charts and actually write on them, so it's always good to watch this stuff. So as it stands as a study, and the reason I said all that is as a study, something that I would do in the past is I'd watch price now. I know the levels where I'm waiting for. I'm aware of what MATIC could potentially do or not. I know what level it needs to cross before, you know, we start to get some more upside. And I know what levels are below me as well. So I would watch it, I'd pay attention to it, and I'd see, is it going higher, is it going lower? And as it starts to grind through all of these levels, or, you know, and start to approach one or the other, it shows you. Price will show you what it wants to do. And it will show you in which way it wants to do it. So if it just kind of bleeds and bleeds and bleeds, that tells us one thing. If it explodes to the downside, that tells us it's going to be looking for liquidity very, very quickly. All right. So just to unclutter the chart, we will leave it as that. So that's MATIC, and we know where we are with that one. We'll keep an eye on it going forward. So now let's talk about CURVE. Recently we had a really nice pop on CURVE, and again, this is a you know, a token that is slightly different to most cryptos with this kind of sideways explosive move and then correction. We kind of started, and it's been going up ever since, which is nice to see. that was a correction just there that pretty much set up for this secondary move. So you see as price, a nice impulse to there, and then that whole section of price just here came all the way back down to almost rebalance completely. Yeah, so that was enough. This point right here, as it came into the imbalance, was enough to create all of this to the upside. That last portion just got a little bit ahead of itself, so it got, capitulated a little bit. It got a high of around about sort of 642-ish or whatever, and I'll tell you the exact high was, where are we, 641. And we've had a nice, reaction from there, a little bit of a correction. So personally, it's almost, it moves like this almost neutralize, the volatility. They neutralize the impulse. So let's say a car is going down the motorway and it's speeding up and it's going really, 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 really fast, and then something happens ahead where the driver has to react very, very quickly. You slam your brakes on, you come to an almost stop, and then you slowly start to speed up again. That reaction, to what was going off in front of the car, that neutralized the speed. And that's effectively what this is. When liquidity dries up, it neutralizes, the move, and then it capitulates and you start to get, that reversal. So at this point, because that's happened, it's very unlikely that curve's going to continue to go to the upside. It will probably stabilize in this area and even maybe pull in a little bit. There is a lot of stuff that it would need to go through on the downside. There's all of this, this whole area of consolidation here, and that's resting on that. So what we want to see now on curve is price just slow down, maybe come down a little bit up, and just work off all of these moves, do what it needs to do, and then show us an indication to, which direction it wants to go in. So we wait, we're patient, we see what happens over the coming weeks and months, and then when it's ready to go, it will see the impulse. And again, as another side note, I've had this conversation with people many times that have asked me, but I don't want to miss the move. That's the thing. Generally, you won't. If you're patient and you wait for these things to unfold, when it finally gives you an indication that it's ready to go. So let's say it goes sideways all the way to here, and then you get a nice pop to the upside and it holds. That's giving you an indication that there's been some volatility, something's come into the marketplace, price may be ready to go to the upside. If that happens, then we can see what happens after that. We don't have to get in straight away. We're patient, maybe it keeps going up, and then eventually it will probably pull back to almost the place where you were thinking of getting in anyway. But at least this way you have all of that confirmation that's backing your trade or investment. Okay, so just a patience thing. And there's your three today: CHSB, MATIC and CURVE. There's not really much else that I've been looking at recently that I would be interested in keeping an eye on. One of these tokens, in fact, MATIC and CURVE were actually asked, somebody asked me, some of the members of the community asked me to talk about these in the recent Smart Talk. So, I've gone through these and I'll be looking to do another video on Monday revisiting, some other things, obviously CHSB as well. So, keep an eye out for that on Monday. And with that said, guys, I hope everyone's having a fantastic weekend and I look forward to speaking to you very soon. All the best and take care.